next video is another Loom video. Yu-Gi-Oh player caught playing with a stolen card.
The year was 2014. Flappy Bird was taking over your phone screen. Brazil was having a rough time. A horse was shaking Obama's hand. And Herb Escapade was about to attend a local Yu-Gi-Oh tournament. I have no idea if that's how you pronounce his name, but to make things easier, I'm going to refer to him as Herb for the rest of this video. Bit of a weird name, but we can work with it. This event was taking place during a pretty...
And yeah, pretty much. If I want to play one duel, I play one duel. If I want to play 7 duels, I play 7 duels. The longest part of Master Duel is waiting for my opponent to realize that I have them entirely locked out of the game so they can proceed to the scoop phase.
exciting time for Yu-Gi-Oh! As it was coming right off the back of a freshly released ban list that had started off the year by completely decimating all of the top decks, finally putting an end to the reign of Dragon Rulers, an archetype so strong that it effectively had removed all other contenders from existence, and survived a previous wave of limitations. But finally, Konami decided enough is enough, we've got some new products we want to sell, and so they smacked it with the ban hammer. This opened up the game to a whole bunch of archetypes to try and take the spotlight. Fire Fist, Bujin, Mermail, Harpy, Gear, all sorts of archetypes previously overshadowed, now had an opportunity to try and have an impact. But Herb decided he wanted to play none of those, and instead focus on a less... how do I put this nicely? A less fortunate archetype that, despite receiving powerful new support over in Japan, Konami seemed to have forgotten to import that support over to the West, meaning this archetype as it stands wasn't very good. It had received some new cards over the past year, but nothing that gave it any real fighting chance. Essentially, Herb had walked into a freshly restocked armory and walked out with a Nerf gun. Despite this, he was still excited to try out some of the new stuff and the new format, so he headed on over to the event. The tournament began, and Herb was matched up against a player whom for this video we're going to refer to as Chris. Chris was on Gear, one of the archetypes I mentioned earlier.
Hey, Connor. I've in my own Ancient Gear Kit builds, I've splashed some of this in with it, because it meshes well. Yeah, pretty much. It does get tiresome after a little while, but then every once in a while you get on a pretty good winning streak and you get fun. I uploaded a few videos off a winning streak earlier today, actually. Yeah, here, take a look at this. The Gear. That's the name of the archetype. If you search Gear, all the different monsters will come up. Some of them are pretty cool. I've used a couple of the Synchro monsters back when the only thing Ancient Gear had was that I think it only had Ultimate, and I didn't have that. But I did have the, because I remember I had an Ancient Gear Cyber Dragon deck, and I did have all the Cyber Dragon fusions. So, like, my fusions were Cyber Dragons, but my foot soldiers were Ancient Gears. Fun times.
That was looking to come back into the metagame, as just a couple of years ago, before the time of Dragon Rulers, this archetype managed to win a YCS, Yu-Gi-Oh's biggest tournament series, before being quickly power crept straight out of the format. But with the rulers gone and quite a few new cards released to support the archetype, things were looking up, giving this deck the potential to be one of the top dogs of the format. Maybe not the best deck, but certainly a threat. Unlike Chronomaly, the only thing they were threatening was the mental health of the poor soul that decided to play them. And so, after
I've never actually played Chronomaly. I've only seen them played in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal anime.
Exchanging a few pleasantries, both players sat down, set up their fields, and prepared for their match to begin. The match began, and as expected, Herb was on the back foot. After a few turns, he found himself staring down a full field of Chris's generic Xyz monsters, combined with a couple of set face downs. Now thankfully, despite how intimidating this field was, the the monster on Chris's field didn't actually do a whole lot on the opponent's turn, so it was quite possible for Herb to try and set up a counter-attack. If he wasn't playing Chronomaly, which had already expended most of its resources on the prior turns, to no avail.
Oof.
Things were looking grim, and clearing this field would be a struggle. Chronomaly, which
Yeah, when I built the Ancient Gear Cyber Dragon deck, I honestly just focused more on the machine type than any one particular attribute. And I mean, I'm not saying it was a great deck. I'm saying it functioned, whereas it summoned monsters. You can't see my air quotes here, but it functioned as in it summoned monsters and sometimes tried to win the game. Yeah, pretty much. If you're not playing on your opponent's turn, you're not playing Yu-Gi-Oh.
had already expended most of its resources on the prior turns, to no avail. Things were looking grim, and clearing this field would be a struggle. Herb slowly reached over and drew a card from top of his deck, praying the whole time for just something, anything to bail him out of this dilemma. He flipped over the card. Perfect. Dark Hole. Dark
Ooh.
Hole is a
Ooh. Dark hole. That's a that's a that's a good top deck.
pretty simple effect. Upon activation, it simply destroys all monsters on the field. Just what he needed. Without hesitation and a newly found optimism, he slapped the Dark Hole straight onto the field, declaring its effect to nuke the board. Unfortunately for Herb, this optimism didn't last very long, as he watched Chris calmly just slip one finger below a face down before flicking it over. Starlight.
Fuck. If I had $1 for every time my heart dropped after seeing that card get turned face up.
Road. Herb's heart sank. Starlight Road
To-
can be activated.
Told you, when you see that card, just ah. Yeah, I just kind of fucked myself there, didn't I?
Whenever your opponent tries to use a card or effect, they'll destroy 2 or more of your cards. It negates the effect, and destroys whichever card tried to do so, instantly rendering the Dark Hole useless. But that's not all.
And then it brings out Stardust Dragon, like he needed another big body on the board to go up against.
After negating the effect, you can then go into your extra deck and pull out a Stardust Dragon, straight to the field. Yet another big ass monster for Herb to try and get through, and another card whose effect could negate destruction effects. Things were looking dire. After checking the card had resolved, Chris reached over to his extra deck, picked it up, and began sifting through it to find his Stardust. But that's when Herb noticed something was a little off. As Chris descended through the pile of cards in his hand, it looked like he'd started to really slow down. After reaching the bottom, he paused for an awkwardly long moment before compressing
Did he not sight it in?
the pile back together and starting his sifting from scratch, all whilst his face started to light
That's the equivalent of opening the fridge again and thinking that there's gonna be something in there this time.
up a little bit red. Once Chris had repeated the process a couple of times, he just sort of froze. His extra deck fanned out in front of him. Herb watched as Chris's eyes began scanning the table, searching across his field, his graveyard, his extra deck zone, before snapping to something on his left. Curious as to what Chris was staring at, Herb turned his head. Down the table, a couple of seats away, sat an unmanned deck box, sitting by a rolled up playmat. Maybe one of the matches had finished early, or somebody had brought a spare deck, but why was Chris so focused on a random deck box? Suddenly, Chris leapt up from his seat, scaring the living shit out of the poor player trying to play a match next to him, before
Is he about to go into his trunk for cards? You can't do that.
reaching across the table above his neighbour's match, snatching up the deck box and returning to his seat. Completely astonished and just lost for words, Herb watched on as Chris popped the lid, slipped out the deck, and began sifting through it. there's just no way he's going to. But before he could even finish his thought, Chris stopped sifting, holding the deck above the field and letting a card slip out of his hands onto the board, before declaring, "Alright, I summon my Stardust Dragon." Laying face up,
Where he either got extremely lucky or that is he knew that there was a Stardust in that deck. There's more to this story.
dead center on the field, was in fact a Stardust Dragon, complete with its own sleeve. That didn't match anything else on the field. Herb just stared at the card, then at Chris, then back at the card. "Alright, I think I'm going to call a judge." The card,
Yeah, there's definitely a
then
moment
at
where you call
Chris,
judge.
then back at the card. "Alright, I think I'm going to call a judge." A few moments later, a judge rocked on up to the table. "Hey guys, so what's the issue?" I think my opponent just yoinked that Stardust Dragon from someone down the table mid-game and then tried to play it." The judge glanced on over at the Stardust, his expression changing to a very confused looking frown, before turning his attention towards Chris. "So, where did this Stardust come from?" "It's mine, of course." "Right, the Stardust Dragon with the completely mismatched sleeve is yours." "Yeah, I just took it out of this deck to lend to someone earlier and forgot to ask for it back before the match." The judge just stared at Chris for a moment, expression completely unchanged.
Even if true, that's not how tournaments work. You can't just add and subtract cards from your deck in the midst of a tournament. This isn't Duelist Kingdom, my guy. This isn't Battle City.
"Alright, if this is your Stardust, you wouldn't mind giving us a quick extra deck count, would you? After all, you should only have 15 cards if this one came from your deck." Chris froze, starting to go a little pale. After a few moments of just sitting there in awkward silence whilst the judge and Herb patiently waited, Chris reluctantly picked up his extra, fanned it out and his graveyard, and began counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, making sure to mumble every number under his breath, getting more and more inaudible the higher the numbers got. It didn't matter, of course, as the judge was also counting along with him. The pair kept counting all the way up to 15, where Chris stopped, still with one card left in hand to go, suspiciously hidden behind another, only the corner peeking out. The judge reached over and gently flipped his finger over the corner. "And that would make 16. Alright, I'm issuing you a match loss."
Yeah, there's a reason these things have a limit, because otherwise you could just put every good card you want in your deck. Like, part of building a deck is picking which cards you include and exclude from a deck. Basic math and basic reading are basically Yu-Gi-Oh players' kryptonite. Absolutely. I would expect more from a tournament level player, but then I forgot. This is Yu-Gi-Oh.
And with that, against all odds, Chronomaly actually managed to win a game. And that's going to do it for today's tale. I do apologise if this story seemed to have a bit more of an abrupt ending than normal. Herb didn't really leave any details as to what happened after, or how the guy reacted to getting the match loss, or how he did in the rest of the event. But maybe if he sees this, he could let us know down below and I'll pin the comment. Now for those of you new around here, I cover a whole bunch of stories on this channel and I'm always on the lookout for more stories for this series. So if you too have a story from your time playing or watching Yu-Gi-Oh! Or maybe you've heard of a really cool tale that would make for a great video and would like to have it recreated in this series, feel free to write it out down below in the comments. Just make sure to leave enough context and detail so I can turn it into a full video. Or at least let me know where I can find the context and detail. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you're interested in seeing more stories just like this one, I've created a full playlist of this series, which I'll leave a link to at the top of the description, or you can click that little card on screen now. Thank you guys for watching and hope to see you in the next one. Laters.